My father was very abusive to my mother, and at 5 years old, my parents split up. My father got custody of my siblings and I, and it was during that time that the physical abuse started, beating my siblings and I with, up to 60 licks at a time to where there were bloody whelps. My father would chain my siblings to their bunk beds.
For Krista Hernandez, there was no safe place to shelter her from the emotional, physical, and sexual abuse she experienced as a young girl.
When I was growing up, I was missing love, unconditional love. I was missing safety. I was longing for whatever a normal family was because I knew we didn't have one.
At 18, Krista became pregnant and gave birth to her first child.
The first thought was, I need to go to the strip club to provide for my daughter. And so I entered into the strip club at around 19 years old. And once I started dancing, there was a girl who befriended me, and she started giving me cocaine. And the cocaine was making it a whole lot easier to do what I was doing.
Krista's friend was working with traffickers who eventually coerced her into the escort business through the guise of lingerie modeling.
And so after the second call that they sent me to, and when I met them with their money, I said, I can't do this anymore. And they said, well, we have footage of you in there. So you're either going to do it or you're never going to get a real job. And so I felt trapped, and I continued working for them. I broke free from them after about 3 years because I ended up pregnant with my son. But after I had my son, I went back to many other bosses on my own because it was all I knew. I was so broken. I didn't feel worthy of anything else. I didn't think there was any other way of survival.
Krista worked in the sex industry for 20 years.
Towards the last 7 years, I got into a darker side of it, which was BDSM, and became a pro-dominatrix because the enemy started telling me, it's your turn to hurt men, Krista. They can't hurt you anymore. I ended up being highly addicted to pain pills, anything that would numb me. And then there were times I lost my kids, in and out of jail, so many things. And when those things would happen, I had a conscience still, I had a heart. And so I would turn to more drugs and more drugs to try and numb the pain.
She often thought about how drugs were slowly destroying her life. Sometimes she prayed, but she wasn't sure God would hear her.
I knew there was this God, that was this all-loving God, but I didn't think he loved me because I was a horrible person. And he must not love me because he's not helping me.
Krista was at her son's baseball game when she got an offer she never expected.
One of the moms invited me to church, and in that moment, I was like, heck no. Jesus wants nothing to do with me. I am too far gone, I am too dirty, and if I walk in that church, it's gonna burn down to the ground. But I was very good at playing the part. And so I said, well, I'm gonna play the good baseball mom. So I went for all the wrong reasons. And when I walked into that church, I remember walking through the door, and then worship started, and the presence came over me of Jesus. And I started weeping. Even though I didn't understand love, I felt loved in that moment. I felt a safety that I had never experienced in 35 years of my life. And I wanted more of it. And so then at the end of the service, they had, anybody want to accept Jesus into their heart? And I'm like, yes, I do. And so I accepted Jesus into my heart.
Over the next 2 years, Krista attended church regularly and focused on her relationship with God. She gained access to helpful resources and support from a mentor through a faith-based support group called Treasures. Then, she left the adult industry for good.
When I finally had that revelation of his love for me, and I was able to break free from the sex industry, break free from the drugs, Jesus' unconditional love it's what freed me.
Krista speaks around the country and tells her story in her book titled No Safe Place. She is founder of Loving You Where You Are At, an outreach and support group in Tampa, Florida. Its mission is to reach, restore, and equip people in the commercial sex industry and victims of sex trafficking.
There is a Jesus who loves you right where you are as you are. because if God could do this for me, someone who was in the sex industry for 20 years, if God could have me sitting where I am today, oh, he can do it for anybody.